Okay, this first session in our clinical microbiology class, I'm going to upload some PowerPoints, PowerPoint slides I'm going to make my PowerPoint slides fairly short so you don't get bored. I don't want to lose you. This first set of slides is really covering why even study microbiology. I mean, students wonder, I want to be a nurse, so why do I have to take this course? I'm not going to be working in the lab. And my answer to those students is, well, as a nurse, you'll be practicing a lot of procedures that require that you take precautions, in avoiding causing more contamination, avoiding causing more infections. Nosocomial infections are very big in hospitals. And you'll also understand better why doctors order certain procedures and why certain tests, take long coming back from the lab. You'll have a better appreciation of the relationship between the microbiology lab and the floor where you're going to be working, or the public health office lab that you're going to be working in, or if you're working for a private doctor, he'll order certain tests to be sent to microbiology. You'd have a better understanding and appreciation of those tests. So the first slide, the second slide here is showing the various parts of the body that can be affected. This is an example of the digestive system, but there are many others. And it says, do you ever wonder about, the unseen life on your skin? Well, our skin has a lot of living things growing on it. Not all of them are dangerous if they're in the right environment where God assigned them. Some of them are assigned on the skin, some of them are assigned in your mouth, in your digestive system. The problem comes when they are moved out of that environment to some other location, and then they become a problem. We'll look into that, which is the very reason why we take certain precautions. Wash your hands and cover your mouth when you're coughing, all for a reason. This next slide is talking about what are microbes anyway, and I kind of just told you a little bit about that. Again, we'll go into more detail on that. There's a link here by someone called a group called Ocean Leadership, and they kind of get into more detail on that. I do want to give them credit, and that because I'm involving it, their link on my slide. Please look at it, but again, just gives you more information about those microbes, what they are. The main thing to understand is that they are tiny. You cannot see them with a naked eye. That is why we call them microbe. Microbe means very, very little. Okay, the next slide says, what is this field of microbiology? Like I said in my introductory video, microbiology is a huge field. It covers different types of microbes. It's a study of microbes, okay? That's what the word means. But you can study microbes in different environments. You can study them in the soil, that would be soil microbiology. You can study them in the food industry. There are certain microbes that are involved in the food industry, either positively because we use them, or negatively because they contaminate food. And that's how you end up with things like, food poisoning. But there are some microbes in the food industry that are useful. Yeast is one of those, and it's used in baking bread. So that is a useful uh, um, um, characteristic of microbes. Now, main things to understand, they are little. Now, when we talk about microbes and when we're studying microbiology, we are talking about 5 classes of microbes, 5 classes of very tiny living organisms. And these include, of course, the viruses, which I've been hearing a lot about. It covers bacteria, which is the biggest group. It covers fungi, their fungal infections. If you get, an infection under your nail, more than likely the microbe involved is a fungus. There are other organisms that are protozoa, like, malaria. the malaria parasite, the organism that causes malaria. Some of those are the trichomonas. Then you have some of them. Some of those microbes are a little larger. Maybe you can see them with the naked eye, like the worms. Those will be the bigger parasites. But again, their eggs are tiny. You can't see them with the naked eye, and you can only see them under the microscope. But anyway, so those 5 categories can all cause disease. And that is what we're going to concentrate on, how those 5 categories of microorganisms do contribute, in quotes, negatively contribute to the infectious process. In other words, how do they impact clinical microbiology? What role do they play in clinical microbiology? That is my main concentration in this course. And the next slide kind of gives you an idea. Some of those microbes, if they're in the soil, they can cause disease. If this is an example of someone with a foot that has been, very severely impacted by a microbe that they caught from the soil. Now, in the soil, those microbes, they are living their own life. They don't bother you. You don't bother them. The problem comes when they enter your body, in this case, someone's foot. And there, it's not their normal environment, so they end up causing damage to your skin, to your tissue, in this case, your toes, and you end up with a disease of the foot. Other examples, and this is an example of a worm. Again, people who unfortunately don't have access to shoes and they walk around with barefoot. Combine that with them walking around with barefoot in contaminated water. This, of course, happens mostly in tropical areas where it's warm enough to walk barefoot. And some of those microbes, the larger ones, like the worms, can enter your body through the foot. And again, they become a clinical problem, cause an infection. We'll see some other infections that can result, some more serious infections like elephantiasis. Those organisms enter your body and they block up your system, and you end up with a swollen foot, really, really swollen foot. So there becomes again a clinical, a medical situation. And of course, currently we are dealing with organisms in the air. That's another location. Of course, we're walking around with masks on our faces because we're trying to reduce the amount of virus in the air that we breathe in. Because in the air, it may not be a problem, but once we breathe it in and it enters our lungs, then it becomes a clinical situation. And of course, we don't need to tell you what an impact that has on our respiratory system. COVID is a major example, but there are many, many others that can enter the lungs. You hear of bacterial pneumonia, viral pneumonia, and other infections of the lungs because those microbes were breathed in. They entered through the nose and mouth and got into the lungs and caused a problem in the lungs. So basically, this is what this course is good. This is kind of like an introduction. Why you need to study this course? Because you can see it impacts your everyday life and what you do, how you conduct yourself.